Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody, and welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, every day. That's our subtitle. Srimad Bhagavatam, every day. Kaustubha.
Yeah.
Quite exciting.
What's that?
We're going to a wedding this weekend.
Big wedding.
We're going to a wedding.
You know, in New York, it's like
I hate weddings, by the way. I hate weddings.
Really?
I love, but I'm excited for this wedding.
Okay. People are starting to show up in New York, like from England, from Florida. People are coming, you know. I met Kaylee the other day, Raghunath.
You met Kaylee, your love buddy. Your love buddy.
Here he goes again.
You love him. It's okay. It's okay to have man crushes.
I don't have a problem with it. You're the one that seems to have issues.
No, it's just so funny because you bring him up and you're like excited.
I was excited to meet him.
I know. He's cool. He's super cool.
We had a great conversation.
Yeah. So we're going to John and Kaustubha. Now you're saying you're the priest of this wedding? What's going on?
Well, her father is actually the head priest, which is maybe a little unusual, but
that is unusual,
authorized, right?
Yeah. Her father's a guru. This is Jahnavi's wedding. Jahnavi's the singer's wedding.
And her father, I think, in the history of like Bhakti in England, you know, he's been like a major figure.
He's like a staple.
He's a staple, and he's a person that's like, I think he's done hundreds and hundreds of weddings. Like he does a lot of the samskars, you know, a lot of the rites, you know, for people for decades.
Can you? So you're allowed to have your father as the priest.
Apparently so. But I will be the assistant priest. You know, I'll be pouring the ghee and.
What am I doing at this wedding?
I think they got a space for you way in the back, Raghunath. I'm going to be right there in the middle of the whole attention.
The flower boy, the flower. I'll be like a little flower boy next to those flowers.
I'm sure we can figure something out for you. We'll get you in there. You got me. Like you can. I'll get you in there somehow. Okay.
I'm psyched. My kids are hanging out. My kids are coming, and Gorvani's kids are coming. It's going to be a kid fest.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be lots of kids there. Yeah.
And then Sunday, I'm doing a program at the box. It might be sold out, but if you, last time I checked, there were three spaces left 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So if you want to go, check the Bhakti Center website. I'm doing a 6-hour immersion, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to go to the Bhakti Center. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out this Sunday.
What time?
I think it's like 10 to 5. 10 to 5. We take an hour
like
lunch break. It's like a day-long thing. I do this every year, and I love it. And we get into
another thing that's going on?
Anthony M's going.
I don't know if I should say this is kind of at the same time, but also it will probably carry on to after that's done. Like maybe when you're all done with that.
Yeah.
You haul on over to Washington Square Park because I think Jahnavi and others will be doing kirtan in Washington.
You know what? I want to do it bad, but you know what? That's the curse of living upstate. I'm living upstate. I want because I got to get the kids back. I got this kid's school the next day.
All right.
Yeah.
You got to get yourself a little.
I should be the DJ at the wedding. They should have had me be the DJ.
Yeah.
I could
maybe.
spin for
What
that
would you
wedding.
spin?
Well, first of all, I'd mix it up. Some bhajans, real classical
Mix it
indie
up.
bhajans. Definitely Madhava's
And
rock band. Then
definitely
again, a
Madhava's
little
rock band.
crazy with 7 seconds urban waste and SSD control. You know,
See, that's the problem right there. That I think that might not work. You see?
she's not hardcore at all.
It might be as great as that music may be. It might be inappropriate for that particular event.
You know, sometimes you got to open your horizons. You know, expand your horizons.
But
even
that's not the
Cindy
time to do
Lunsford,
it.
Yogeshwari, she's a complete civilian. You know, if you look, she looks a little hardcore because she's got lots of tattoos, but she's not. She's total civilian. And I was like,
She
come
needs
on,
to
you
hear a
should
little
listen.
Urban Waste.
I was trying to like get her to listen to a little hardcore. She's like, listen, I really don't like Shelter, but I like all your lyrics.
Oh, that
And
hurts.
so it's okay. It hurts a little. It hurts a little.
Okay.
But she said she likes the lyrics a lot, and that means something.
You know,
I would have. I mean, if John, if you asked me, I would have rapped some Shelter lyrics for her. Maybe there's
I'm
some
gonna
room in the wedding for that. Perhaps you can ask as the assistant priest.
I'm going to make an apology to you, Raghunath. That is about 30-something years late. You ready?
Like Shelter either.
What's that?
You don't
No,
like
no, no. Well, it's not. Well, it's this. It's that I remember this was probably like 1989 or something like that, right?
1989. Okay.
And Shelter played some little club like the Rat something or other in Boston.
1991.
Okay, it was 1991. You know all the dates? Like you only.
Well,
played
just
there
I was in
once or
India then at 89.
Okay, gotcha. So it was 1991, and Shelter played that little club in Boston.
The Rat Skeller. That's
The
the
Rat
CBGBs of Boston, by
Okay.
the way.
And I was there somehow as a brahmachari, and I was, I guess that would have been, I was 4 years into my brahmachari monk life, and I had fully renounced my previous life, as a listener to hardcore music.
Yet you had to sneak out and come to a hardcore show, didn't you?
No, I had service to do there, Raghunath. I had service to do. But I remember when
They
we were
always say
walking-
that, right, Mara? They always say, "Oh, it was service." I wasn't there for the music
I
and
had
hanging out.
service to do. And so, and then when we were walking out after the show, you turned to me like kind of excited, like, "What did you think, Kaustubha? What did you think?"
And
Right?
you were like, complete nonsense.
I didn't say like that, but I kind of said, it's hardcore like that or something like that. Like, like I don't listen to that anymore. I kind of said it like that. And then I saw you kind of get deflated. And I didn't I definitely recognize the value in what you're doing, but I didn't fully recognize it. And I should have come back with full enthusiasm saying, what you just did was wonderful, Raghunath. That was absolutely a beautiful event. I should have responded that way because that's the truth. So I apologize.
It probably hurt.
Apologize.
Probably
I hurt
hurt
your
at
heart.
the time, but I let it go. I let it
I
go.
hurt your heart. And I didn't mean to do that, and it was wrong. And I was being narrow-minded.
Thank you, Kaustubha.
You're welcome.
I was just recently deflated too. What was that about?
Was it me?
No, it wasn't you. Something
Okay.
else. Something Rachel said to me the other day.
It was
I was like,
Rachel.
we're gonna spread Krishna consciousness all over the world.
And she said,
I
you
was
know,
like,
maybe you
really-
could
I was really
clean your
ecstatic
house up
the-
a little bit first.
it was something like that. I was like, I'm gonna spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. I was like completely inspired. We did that program in Atlanta, and me and Cindy were driving, and we were like expanding, and we're building farms and creating things in our mind. And Rachel goes, okay, take it easy, zip it up. First we're gonna pay your taxes.
So that's why Rachel's
Then
there.
we're gonna get Super Soul going. Right? I was like,
that's
oh,
needed.
Anyway, Srimad
Anyway.
Bhagavatam. Here's a nugget.
Nuggets. We got nuggets. We got announcements. We got all this. Why don't we do announcements? Mara G,
Okay. Yes, we
the
have
lovely Mara, please share us what announcements we have. today.
She's like the Carolyn Maryland on The Price is Right. And the lovely Carolyn Maryland will show us what we have today.
Trevor Vaughn is offering an asana class to our Patreon members at 8 a.m. today.
Alrighty.
Bhakti Recovery Group meetings at 1 and 9:30. And then Lisa B is offering an essential oils workshop of creating non-toxic options for your home this evening at 6:30 p.m.
I
Non-toxic
want to
options
take
for the
that.
home.
I just
should take it
prefer
right.
toxic options like bleach, ammonia.
DDT.
That's actually a very cool workshop. That's Lisa Bermudez is doing that.
Yeah.
But it's an oil workshop, but it has to do with getting rid of
Essential
toxic things and
oils,
replacing
yeah.
them with good oils.
Oh.
Exactly. And like, how to create your own cleaning products and things like that.
That's the
Oh,
stuff.
that is very useful.
Super helpful. Yeah.
My wife does all that kind of stuff, She
Your
makes
wife does
like
it
little.
All right, we'll get her on Patreon then. Enough
I
talking
actually
about
called
your
her
wife.
out the other day because she was like, we ran out. Like, there's that little bottle of stuff that you use to like clean either like glasses, like that little. You get a little spray. It comes in a little plastic bottle, and it ran out. And she said, "Oh, can you get me some more of this?" I said, "Why don't you just make your own? So you're into that kind of thing. What you buy a new plastic bottle with a little bit of water and a little bit of ammonia in it or something like that, right?
Not ammonia.
Or something like that. Yeah, or no, alcohol.
Oh.
They put a little rubbing alcohol in it, right, like that, right? That's all
Vinegar.
It is.
Vinegar.
I mean, a little vinegar, make it yourself. She said, "You're right."
Kaustubha's riding the squirrel rodeo today, don't you think?
Okay, all right.
All right, here's your nugget, my friend.
Feel guilty.
He's all excited about his assistant priest gig.
You brought that up. I didn't bring it up.
I'm jealous.
Hit it, nugget. Who's this nugget from?
This nugget is from a guy named Guy Consalmagno. Guy Consalmagno. Consalmagno. He wrote a book called God's Mechanics: How Scientists and Engineers Make Sense of Religion.
Okay, then let's hear this nugget. What's he got?
A Jesuit and a Franciscan are walking through a garden. It sounds like a joke already. A Jesuit and a Franciscan are walking through a garden, silently engaged in prayer. When the Jesuit pulls out and lights up a big cigar,
How unusual.
the Franciscan whispers, "My spiritual director says one should not smoke while one prays." The Jesuit replies, "Mine said it's all right if I pray while I smoke."
Okay. Very interesting. Again, the Franciscan whispered, "My spiritual director says one should not smoke while one prays." And the Jesuit replied, "Mine said it's all right if I pray while I smoke." What do you gather from this, Raghunath?
Different medicine prescription for different recovering, people.
Patience.
Right? Parents know this. You can't give the same instructions to every kid because some kids just no, I'm not going to do it, period. So you have to work with what you're dealing with. Good teachers know this. Good gurus know this.
So
you got to find where So even copying the instruction, well, my guru said this. And people say that all the time. Prabhupada said this.
Right.
Sometimes there's a time, place, circumstance, and a unique person they give this instruction to. And you can't just wave the banner for this at all times, all places, for all people.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's
Viva
like,
la difference, Kaustubha. We're all different here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, but it's true. Even the same teacher might give different instructions, even apparently opposite instructions to different students because they have wisdom, right? And the wisdom allows them to recognize. One thing I've shared this before. I'm almost sure on the show before. But in my great fortune, one of my great fortunes in life, and yours as well, Raghunath, is that we've had the opportunity to be a little bit close to Radha Swami and see him and how he operates and how he speaks and how he thinks and how he responds and how he teaches. And one thing that I've seen in him, one thing that I've understood through being near him, is that wisdom has a lot to do with understanding how things grow.
Yeah.
Like I remember once I was at the Eco Village, Govardhan Eco Village in Mumbai, which is Radha Swami's ecological farm community project, award-winning, big, incredible place, right?
Yep, we're going in January.
We're going in January, and he had a whole vision of like recreating Vrindavan there in the temples of Vrindavan, and making it very beautiful. It's so sad. I just saw this photograph. It broke my heart today or yesterday, Raghunath. It was a photograph of Vrindavan, and it showed the Madan Mohan temple, which is like an iconic temple, like raised on like the highest platform in
Yeah.
the village of Vrindavan, and it kind of represents Vrindavan practically, like the
Dwada
like
dish,
Huh?
Dwada
Bharadisha.
Ditya Tila.
Sort of Tila, yeah. It's like up on this. It's almost like an Eiffel Tower to Paris or something like that, right? Like you see Madhumohan Temple, you think of Vrindavan.
Yeah, it's like the skyline. It's the original skyline of Vrindavan.
And so and this photograph showed this just huge, ugly building built right next to it, and I said,
Oh, you're kidding.
What the hell?
It's new. It just got built.
I'd never seen it before.
That's heartbreaking.
You know, so like the beautiful village of Vrindavan, which used to be a quiet, quaint, you know, it's still.
Do I have to go to Vrindavan and become the city planner? They're ruining themselves here. You know what I mean? It's like build outside of the main area. It's like you can't go
shut off all the cars. Don't let
you
people.
can't go into these old cities of Europe and start putting in McDonald's and things like that. Keep it old. No traffic. Build huge parking. If more people want to come, make it all walk streets. Have electric rickshaws only and deliveries once a week. Do I have to think of everything?
I think you do, Raghunath. I think they need your help. And so, in any case, so it's sad that that Vrindavan has become so built up and congested and so on. But he was creating a new Vrindavan, has created a new Vrindavan in the Govardhan Eco Village that's like super beautiful and super quiet and super natural. And at this time when I was there, they had imported all these different types of plants, trees and bushes and flowering, vegetation, all different, and it had come from some place near the Godavari River. We're in the village where Ramananda Roy met Lord Chaitanya somewhere in South India, right? And so the trucks had delivered all of these plants that were like all lined up and sitting in a certain area,
almost like a nursery had like taken off all these. It looked like a nursery.
Exactly. It looked like a big nursery there. And Gauranga Prabhu, who we've had on the show, we've interviewed on the show before, he was explaining to Radha Swami that we need to, Radha Swami has such qualified disciples, right? And someone like Gauranga Prabhu was just like managerially, like just like off the charts, right? Just like so, so Radha Swami doesn't necessarily, he can direct it and inspire it and have people that are super responsible taking care of everything. So Radha Swami saw all those plants there and he said, so what's happening here? And he said, well, they brought these plants, but you have to leave them here for like 2 weeks or so before you plant them, because actually getting on the truck and coming here, there's a certain trauma that like the plant goes through, and you have to kind of let it settle down first before you plant it in the ground. Interesting, right? And as soon as I heard that and I saw Radha Swami, and I saw him listening to Gauranga explain this, I said, he's going to use that as an analogy in a class. It's just a matter of time. And actually he did that very evening, right? He used that as an analogy in the class he gave. But again, wisdom has something to do with understanding how things grow. When something needs water, when something needs, sunlight, when it doesn't. Water is good for the plant. Well, you can't just pour tons of water on it, you'll kill it. And some plants need more water than others.
You're taking it back. You're taking it back to the nugget here.
I'm coming back to the nugget.
Okay, you swirled about. Then I thought you were going with this, like, I understand the mind of the guru. I thought that's where you were going next.
No.
Okay, but you're saying this is the nugget here.
That in other words, so the essence of the nugget is that different instructions are appropriate at different times for different people, right? The guy that's smoking the cigar, right?
Right.
It's probably just a matter of time before he leaves that habit behind. But if out of his guilt of smoking the cigar, he neglects his spiritual practice, then it does no good to tell him actually it can be destructive to tell him don't smoke the cigar, right?
Sure.
So rather say, okay, if you're going to smoke, that's okay, but also pray a little bit while you're smoking.
Sure.
Right.
Sometimes in the name of renunciation too, and we will often hear that renunciation can harden the heart. And that was what's frustrating when I first became a devotee. The idea of being straight edge was, for me, always seemed to be like, if you don't know what straight edge is, we didn't drink, we didn't smoke, we were vegetarians. It almost seemed like a threshold to something greater. I'm giving up these things because there's something so much more. I'm giving up for something so much more. And I don't really, at that time, we never realized it was going to be a big scene. And me and Parmananda were shocked by how big it grew. But when you use those things for the threshold to be the end all,
Right.
then arrogance comes from, I'm giving up alcohol, or I'm vegetarian. And that just becomes sort of like a badge of honor that you sort of like.
That's the success.
Yeah, that's the
goal.
Success. I gave it up.
Yeah.
And
which is kind of a shallow goal, you know.
It's not. It's a bad thing. It's a good thing, but it's meant to bring us somewhere else. But if we get arrogant about it, so if this guy said, "I'm not going to smoke cigars," and then you're arrogant and looking down and belittling those who are smoking, even the guy praying and smoking, that's a problem. And it's a problem in Bhakti because, and we say this again and again, renunciation can harden your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're just giving up for this. That's not the win, just giving up bad habits. It's giving up bad habits because they're inhibiting us on our path to bhakti. And to have that soft, sweet heart. If I have given up something, suppose I give up meat eating or alcohol or etc., then we should be extra kind to those people who are still attached to those things. We shouldn't be holding it over their head like we're above it. We should be kind, supportive, and loving. And if we see someone who has fallen from, they did give up, or they were straight edge and now they're drinking again, we shouldn't ostracize them. We should love and encourage them.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting thing in line with what you're saying is we can make the mistake. It's not hard to make the mistake. And I think the mistake is somewhat commonly made, where you equate renunciation with devotion, or you could say with spiritual advancement, right? Just because renunciation plays an important role in spirituality, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the goal of spirituality.
It's not the home run.
Yeah. And so someone may actually be more renounced, but less spiritually advanced. And so, like, say in this case with the guy with the cigar and the guy without the cigar, it would appear externally like, well, if one person is able to let go of his bad habits, he must be the one that's further along the path.
We don't see it so much in America, but it's a huge thing in Vedic culture because renunciation is so appreciated.
But
in
I mean,
culture.
even like say in a church, someone may say, well, the priest must be more spiritually along the path than anyone else in the congregation because he's a priest and
he's got the outfit on.
He's got the outfit on. He's the one that's up there on the altar, right, speaking.
Yeah.
So but all that is, everything I just mentioned was external, not internal. Right. So there might be a quiet person in the back pew that appears to be very ordinary, but may have an internal spiritual life that's way beyond.
Yeah.
And so, like this person with the cigar, with the person without the cigar, it's great that he's not that he's left this bad habit behind. But if you mentioned it can turn to arrogance. If the problem of arrogance is a bigger problem than the problem of smoking the cigar, right? So if his renunciation has led him to a harder heart or to arrogance, that's actually a bigger problem. And even this person, if the person that smokes the cigar, right, if he's thinking, I'm really just like, who am I? I can't even like give up these. I love to pray, but I can't even give up like this smoking the cigar. He may be actually far more along the path than the one that appears externally to be, further along that path. So it's something we really need to consider, right?
Did you ever hear this one?
Mm-hmm.
Better to be with a prostitute thinking about God.
Hold it.
Hear this one. Hear this one out.
What
Better
kind
to
of
be with a
rationalization
prostitute thinking about God than to be in the church thinking about the prostitute.
Very good. Yeah. Okay.
Bear's like, what? I didn't make it up. I'm just repeating it.
No, I appreciate that. So it's an important principle. And I think this same principle applies. It helps one understand the vast teachings of the Vedic literature, right? Which are so vast and which are interpreted in so many different ways. If you look at the Karma Kunda, the section of the Vedic literature that encourages the cultivation of good karma through ritual.
Mm.
There are a lot of instructions there that make it seem like that's the very goal of life, you know? And then you have other instructions, so like say that are more prominent in books like the Upanishads, the Jnana-kunda, that renunciation seems to become the goal of life, you know, the goal of spirituality. And then you have, you know, the Bhakti Shastras like the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, which are pointing out, no, devotion is the goal of life. And well, which one is which? Is one valid? Are you saying the other is invalid? No, it's just that they're different instructions for different people at different stages of their spiritual development.
I like how in Bhakti, we're not looking at it as, or at least we're trained not to think of it as, I'm giving this up. I'm cutting this. I'm detached from this. We're saying, I'm using my senses in the service of Lord Vishnu. And Krishna is controlling my senses. And we don't put it the other way, like I'm this master and I'm in control. We take it as I'm engaging my senses in Krishna's service. I'm engaging my thoughts, my actions, my words, my speech. And I'm not going to do this because Krishna doesn't want me to do this with my senses. And all of a sudden we realize it's Krishna's who's assisting us control the senses. I think the 12-step, the Bhakti recovery group, they're like that too. It's bigger than me. I can't do it. I'm turning all my life over to a power greater than myself. You know, Kaustubha, I get all these people who write me all the time too. Like, you know, how are you giving up alcohol? I mean, we shouldn't take for granted that giving up alcohol, giving up meat is a very difficult thing for a lot of people. And if you're over it, you don't have to. We shouldn't underestimate that people still struggle with these things.
You just reminded me of another story.
You're gonna squirrel my squirrel?
Yeah, well,
squirrel my squirrel.
Because
okay, go.
I remember once a friend. I'm not going to say who this was, but it's a friend of ours, old friend of ours.
Okay.
You may know when I begin to tell the story. And she was talking to Raghunath Swami. It was like some public event, like it may have been a Rath Yatra or something like that, right? Mm. And so she had a few minutes, you know, to say hello and to, you know, share her love for him. Mm. But she also took that opportunity to kind of like, I don't know if confession is the right word, but like kind of like share her own feelings of fallenness with him, which is kind of a deep thing in spirituality, you know?
Feelings of fallenness.
And she was crying. And she was saying to him, you know, I don't know what it is about me, but I look at all the other devotees and they all give up meat so easily. And I try and still sometimes like I eat chicken and I feel so bad about it. I don't know what's wrong with me. And you know, it was like that.
Right.
And he consoled her and just spoke sweet words to her. But afterwards, I forget his exact words to me, but it had to do with like, who's more advanced, you know, like, even though she has this one thing, you know, the stumbling block, or, you know, that for whatever psychological reason, she's having trouble getting past. Yeah. But look at the humility. You know, she's coming here with tears in her eyes. You know, she doesn't think she's better than anyone.
Right.
That's you know, that's where the spirituality has to go. You know, we're like, we don't think that we're better than anyone. That kind of humility is that's the fertile ground for, like, you know, the growth of real devotion, you know, to come. So yeah,
I like it.
There's so many, you know, important examples like that.
The story about Lord Chaitanya and the renunciate who only drank milk.
Oh, well, there's another story about Lord Chaitanya too. You want to tell the milk drinker one?
The milk drinker one is really good because it's a thing in India. They're called doot bubbas.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's a whole thing, man.
Okay.
Doot bubbas.
All right.
By the way, wait till we get this on the show next week. I don't think it's going to be this Sunday.
We're going to bring a doot bubba on.
We're going to bring a doot bubba.
Doot bubba.
No, I'm going to bring Veda Sar. Veda Sar. I just picked this guy's brain about healing snake bite with mantra. He's got things like healing jaundice with mantra, exorcisms.
This is a person full of Krishna devotion, and you just want to get him here talking about this.
No, we talked all about Krishna devotion, but I just veer off a little into mystic things.
Okay.
Anyway, doot bubba.
Doot bubba.
So there's a doot bubba, and it's a type of thing where you don't eat anything except milk for years, and you get the milk right from the cows, and of course you take care of your own cows. It was a thing. It was a thing. It still probably is a thing. But anyway, it gets you incredibly sattvic. Imagine that. You're just nourished from milk and eating nothing else. And that's how they live. So they become incredibly sattvic. So, and he was begging Lord Chaitanya's intimate disciples, please, you're going to Srivasa's house every night for kirtan. Please let me in this kirtan. And they were saying,
every night there are these private kirtans, right? That were just like off the charts, like
off the charts, intimate, but no one was invited to this unless you were like really close to Lord Chaitanya. And he said, can you sneak me in?
And we should say it was because at that point it was early in the growth, and because everyone involved was so deeply committed, it was enabling the experience to really take off, right? So they were just keeping it internal at that point.
So he said, can you please just sneak me in? He's like, well, Lord Chaitanya really doesn't like other people to come into the kirtan unless he invites them. He goes, let me just sneak me in. I'll hide it. What do you like, hid in a hamper or something, like some basket?
He was behind I think he was behind a pillar.
Behind a pillar. And so the kirtan's going on. And then Lord Chaitanya just said, stop it. Stop the kirtan.
Is that right? Stop.
Something is not right tonight. Something is not right tonight.
Maybe you should do this at the wedding, Raghunath, this weekend, just so that you can have your moment. Stop the wedding. Something's not right here.
Imagine if they said, someone is not pure, and everyone just looks at me. What is going on in your mind right now, Raghunath? Get him out of the wedding.
No, I'm saying you could be the one to call someone out. There's someone here at this wedding whose vibration is not right.
It's the assistant priest.
Hell no.
No. So anyway, so Lord
Stop
Chaitanya said, something is wrong. Something is wrong today. And there was this, he says, someone is here that doesn't belong here. And they said, well, we did invite this incredible Dut Baba. He is a very, very nice devotee. He goes, and then he started
and he said, yeah, he was trying to argue in his favor, right? Like, he's such a good person, he's gentle and he's kind, and he only drinks milk. Like, that's it, you know?
He's like, you think someone can enter pure devotion just because he drinks milk? Are you kidding? It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with this renunciation. It's got everything to do with the person's heart. Devotion is the highest thing, not renunciation. It was this whole lecture on devotion, higher than just giving up and even then just being sattvic. I mean, we see sometimes people are not so sattvic, yet they have a heart of devotion. And that is going to be the lifeline. That's all I got going for me. I'm trying to hold on. My only hope is that I have some devotion and pull me out of my Raja and Tamaguna. But Lord Chaitanya afterwards said, actually, your heart is in a good place. And he let him in the kirtan.
Yeah, it's when I read that, it's amazing in those, particularly in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's a lot of humor, right? The Chaitanya Bhagavat is one of the biographies of Sri Chaitanya. And I think particularly there, a lot of humor comes out, which is interesting, right? Because it's like, this is an incarnation of God, it's God come and, but it's like a lot of times it's almost like human kind of, very human type of humor being shared. And when he's condemning this person, it seems as you read the entire pastime, it's being done to illustrate the point that we're discussing, right? That it's not renunciation. That's important.
And he makes a huge thing about it. Everyone's witnessing it. It's being recorded in his biography, and then he changes his mood completely, embraces him, and welcomes him.
And the way that he refers to him is like, in other words, that milk detail, it was kind of just one of the details that Srivas Pandit shared in terms of defending this person's good character, right? He's simple and he's renounced and he's very a holy person and he only drinks milk. And like Chaitanya just focused just on that point, right? Like the milk
got
thing,
nothing
right?
to do with that. He lives in a tiny home. He only drinks spring water.
But he was like saying like, you're a milk drinker. Like he just kept calling him the milk drinker. Like, it's like, but I was thinking of another story too. And that is when Sri Chaitanya's, now he's a sannyasi, and which means like he's taken strict vows of celibacy, and the path that the sannyasi follows, right? The regulations in their lives were that they were very distant from ladies, right? Like it was a sannyasi would be very careful in his associate, would never associate intimately or privately with a woman. Just as a not that the complete respect for women, but maintaining some distance. And so Sri Chaitanya was in the Jagannath temple, right? And he's
good story. Right. He's having
darshan.
He's having darshan.
He's having darshan, and I think he's next to the Garuda Stamba, like this. At
the back of every temple, Vishnu temple, there's a big pillar that's a stamba, and on top of that stamba is Garuda. So Garuda is always having darshan of the Lord.
That's right.
So he's everyone's packed up front. He's holding this Garuda stamba, just looking from the back. He's in his deep state of devotion, seeing the form of Lord Jagannath, Lord Krishna, and there's an old woman there. Yes.
And like an old villager woman,
Yes.
And she wants to, you can imagine she's probably shorter. Lord Chaitanya was quite tall, right? And she's,
He was very tall. Short. She was hunched over. She's an old lady.
She was an old lady. And everybody, there must have been some kind of, when I've never been in the Jagannath temple, but when the curtain, where there was a curtain opened and when the darshan was revealed, there must have been some excitement, and everybody's rushing to get to see Lord Jagannath. And in her excitement, she began to climb up on the body of Lord Chaitanya, right? Like yes. Trying to climb up there and see over his shoulder, and she's hanging on to him.
Like climbing on his back, getting on his shoulders.
Yeah. And so
and he didn't mind.
Well, this is the point, right? He had some of his followers there, and they were quite upset about this, and I guess they kind of pulled her down, took her off of him, and were maybe speaking some corrective words to her, like, "Hey, this is a sannyasi. What to speak of? Climbing on his body. You're meant to keep a little respectful distance from him. This is totally wrong what you're doing." But his response, Lord Chaitanya's response, was like, "Don't criticize this woman." He said, "I wish I had her eagerness to see Lord Jagannath was so strong that these rules of etiquette, she transgressed those rules out of the enthusiasm that the rules are meant to cultivate, right?"
You know how we know that story is true? Because we've been in temples like that. Sure. I remember the first time I went to Nathdwar when I was 22.
Oh, yeah.
In Nathdwar, me, Paramananda, and Sachi Sutta were sitting by those giant Rajasthan.
So describe what Nathdwar is.
Nathdwar is like a gated city in Rajasthan, where the deity is like, it is like it. First of all, it's a city. It's a Krishna deity.
It's the most famous, biggest, most popular temple of Krishna in northern India, I suppose.
Oh my God. But so we went there right for Mughal Arti. Mughal Arti is like something like 4:30. And so we got there at like 4:15. We're dressed in our dhoti, we got our tilak on. Nobody's there. I was like, man, I thought this place was happening. And then 4:20, a few people.
Raghunath's waiting for the party to start.
I was like, where is it going to happen? I thought, wait a minute, 4:29, it's packed.
Chaos.
Packed. No. Silent. Packed. We're outside the gates.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, this is very good. Everyone's meditative and thoughtful. This is nice. So I'm sitting there chanting japa, and there's like a lot of elderly people there too. And then all of a sudden, 4:30, the giant, castle-like doors start to move, and then they open. And then I tell you, it was like a madhouse. Everyone just starts screaming, yelling. I have old ladies elbowing me, pushing me out of the way, and just like running full speed towards the deity. Practically, I'm 22. I'm strong. I'm healthy. I'm getting knocked over by the elderly. Women pulling me, grabbing at my kurta. This is the bhakti I'm talking about in northern India.
That's right.
This is why I love northern
India. Those Rajasthani ladies, they're great. Like,
they will climb you. They'll push you. They'll hit you with the stick. They'll yell.
But I, like say in the temple, in the Govindaji temple in Jaipur, you got those ladies, right?
Same thing, man.
Push you out of. Of course, that's a huge. There's a lot of room there.
Yeah.
But they sing those songs, right?
Yeah. Or Srinathji, there's not a lot of room, so they pack it in there.
Yeah, it's tight.
Pack it in there. You could lift your feet off the ground. It gets so packed.
What about those ladies at the Gopinath temple in Jaipur? Remember them? That's a temple. It's a little temple. Remember?
Yeah, it's
Gopinath
upstairs.
Temple? No.
Upstairs.
You're thinking of Vinodi Lal Temple. The Gopinath Temple is the one that has the Tulsi jacket and hat.
Yeah.
Madhu
That's
Pandit.
Madhu Pandit. Imagine that,
Right.
Mara.
This is one of Raghu's favorite things.
The person who unearthed this deity, Madhu Pandit, his name was. They have his outfit in a glass display, and he had a Tulsi bead jacket.
The whole thing was made out of
a Tulsi bead skull cap. Imagine me walking around in that. That is the ultimate punk rock statement.
You would love that.
I'm gonna get the silver Tulsi Mala guy to make me that.
They're pretty heavy to walk around with.
No, they're not.
It's all tiny, light little beads. Yeah, it wasn't too chunky or anything like that. Yeah,
I'm gonna get that. All right.
The only thing is, it wouldn't take you long to destroy that jacket. But the ladies in that temple, right? They kind of rule the temple in there, right? Like they run the kirtan in there. It's a small temple, but it's like, those Rajasthani ladies, when it comes to the songs, and they got that certain fervent devotion. That's
I love that temple. Okay,
so, I think we're not going to get to the Bhagavatam.
You know what? We were experiencing the joy of bhakti today, and we just sort of like we took up the whole show.
I think we need one more example, maybe from the chat board. Someone could share at least one more example of this idea, right? That people have different prescriptions at different places, and we shouldn't. The regulations that we follow should never be used as a reason to judge others or be confused with spiritual advancement, something like that, right?
Yes.
Maybe someone could share an idea. I've got one verse about that, though, and a really important verse.
Kylie Brown says the Brahmins in Krishna Lila, the wives of the Dvija Patnis.
The Dvija Patnis. That's like kind of.
They knew all of the rituals. They knew all of
husbands.
The mantras. The husbands knew all the mantras. But when little Krishna's friend said, "Hey, can you give some of that?" When they have those sacred fires, they have like coconuts and papayas. Like after the wedding, my kids will run towards that fire and start like stealing all that prasad. I get the mango. I get the coconut. You know what I mean? So the same thing. There's all this beautiful fruit around that, and Krishna and Balaram are hungry. So the cowherd boys say, "Hey, can you give some of that fruit to Krishna and Balaram?" And instead of saying, "Yeah, sure," I mean, the goal of what we're doing here is to please God anyway. But no, they were like, "Get out of here, you little kids!" Chase them away.
Actually,
you're all
totally ignored them. They totally
they
ignored
dissed them. You can't diss God. You can't diss God in the name of religion
or God's
backwards.
Friends.
Right? It's backwards. The whole point of your fire yagya is to worship Krishna.
There you go. So they missed the forest because of the trees. That's what it's like. That analogy applies in this case, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, Krishna Drew is saying the story of the prostitute and the brahmana across the street.
Are we going to have to name this show the Prostitute Show today?
We might have to.
Stories
then you could bring in Chintamani the prostitute too. That's
a good one.
That's a good one. But let me share this verse, right?
Okay.
If I can remember it. What's the first word? God. Or Eva Kinkara. What's the beginning? It's the verse says, always remember Krishna. Smartavyam satatam Vishnur, Vishvartam no najatu chit. That which means always remember Krishna.
Never forget
in this
Krishna.
case, Vishnu, but we could translate always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Right? Sarvaviti Nasedasur. Sarvaviti, all the rules. Sarvaviti Nasedasur, Etior Eva Kinkara. They're all servants, they're kinkaras. They're all servants of this rule. Right?
In
other words, kinkara, like that.
You little kinkara.
Okay. So it means, in other words, whatever rule or regulation that there is in yoga practice, in bhakti practice, in quote unquote religious practice or spiritual practice, there are rules, there are regulations, right?
Yeah.
And as you were saying with the straight edge thing, the point isn't to follow the rule for the rule's sake. The point is that if you follow these rules, it can open you up to something more deeply profound. Right. Ultimately, in this case, remembrance.
A threshold,
of Krishna, right?
A ladder to bring us to something higher.
That's right. And so this verse is saying that ultimately every rule that there is, every aspect of etiquette, every, technicality and ritual and the different rites and all of that. What's so funny?
God, it always makes me laugh. This is Wisdom of the Sages, the prostitute show.
All right.
All
But in
right,
any
go
case,
on.
all the different rules, all the different regulations, all the different aspects of etiquette, all the different mantras that we chant, all the, whatever it is, you should be able to tie it to that purpose, right? And if that purpose is being served, like for instance, for the guy that was smoking the cigar, right? The thing is that whoever instructed him, his spiritual director, recognized, I want to bring his mind to God. And this guy is constantly smoking cigars. And if I tell him you have to stop smoking cigars, he's not going to be able to do it. And he'll just say, I can't practice spirituality. I can't pray because, it's just too difficult for me. So he says, okay, while you're smoking your cigar, pray a little bit, Now for another person, there may have been a regulation, don't smoke the cigar, right? It'll actually bring you in the other direction. So in any case, whatever the rule is, it's meant to lead to that remembrance, to that thought, to that higher level of consciousness wherein one's always aware of the presence of God in everyone and everything,
Kaustubha.
Yeah.
I'm really happy actually with how, first of all, we are in like a tidal wave, a tsunami of bhakti right now. Bhakti is blowing up all over the world in a beautiful way. And I'm happy that Wisdom of Sage is a big part of it. But Ramad Devi put up on the board, she said, when I was a younger devotee who didn't follow strictly, if you were a younger devotee in the old days, if a person wasn't following strictly, but they still would come around to the temple, there was a pejorative we used. We called them fringies because they're on the fringe. And it's such not a good thing to think of people like that. It's hard. We don't use that word anymore.
It sounds like the term is born out of arrogance.
It's
right?
born out of arrogance, you fringy. He's a friend of Lord Krishna. I felt like there was another pejorative, where you're just right. A friend. He's a friend. He's not serious about it. So
we're the devoted servants or something.
Yeah, we're the devoted servants, and you know that even the devoted servants can do an about face in a moment. I mean, we've been around long enough to realize that the most enthusiastic can turn around 180 degrees in a moment. And I feel like the community has just become mature. There's not and encouraging, and I'm really happy about that. Just want to share. I don't use the word. I mean, Mara would probably be called a fringy, wouldn't she?
What kind of thing? What are you trying to set me up here or something? But I get what you're saying. In other words, someone might, what you're saying is, although Mara is so deeply devoted, knowledgeable, dedicated,
because she's never lived in a temple, she doesn't go to the temple regularly.
Right,
you know what I mean? They're like, well, who's this Mara? Fringy?
She's got some business out there.
Got some business.
Thinking she's number one, in the county. But what does that mean?
Well, we're going to find out if she's number one because they just did another Columbia County state poll to see the best. We're going to find out in a short time. I voted for her, though. Okay.
Oh, it's the time for...
it's time for some takeaways. Are there any takeaways, Mara?
We have takeaways.
All right.
Wisdom has to do with understanding how things grow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
You okay? But that was mine, not yours, Raghunath. But
okay, all right. I'm going to let that one
I get
pass.
it that you're not very enthusiastic about it, but if you will tolerate it, I would appreciate it.
Renunciation isn't the goal of spirituality.
That can be said in a better, more sexy way.
You're judging all of the takeaways, Raghunath.
All right. How about
Nuggets have to be catchy.
Okay. That's a takeaway right there.
Yeah. If renunciation leads to arrogance and a hard heart, it's a bigger problem.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, lucky.
Yeah. Let Krishna control your senses.
Just
lucky.
Let go and let God.
Let go, let God. Let go, let God. Boom.
Humility is fertile ground for our spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I like that one. Neck tattoo for Mara. Imagine if she just came to the show one day with a big neck tattoo. Everybody's doing it now, Mara.
It's got to be Papa Tony approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Regulation shouldn't be confused with spiritual advancement.
Regulation.
Yeah.
Regulation, the rules, the regulations, the
Mhm.
vidi.
Rules, regulations, and etiquette should bring us to love of God.
That's what they're for.
Yes. Yes.
The grounds of real devotion is true humility.
We kind of said that one already, but
And they're done that.
Yeah. You can't diss God in the name of religion.
Certainly not.
There is a bird trying to get in my window. Oh, it's this cardinal. Non-stop, all day. He's banging his
Are you
head
sure
on
it's
my
not a
window.
squirrel? Are you sure it's not a squirrel?
Okay, go ahead.
Wisdom of the sages, the prostitute show.
We've
Thank
had
you,
other
Mike.
prostitute shows before.
Yeah, we have.
You know, they come up a lot, prostitute. The oldest profession, they say.
It is.
You know. All right, on that note.
We just went with the nugget today. This
You know
is just
what's-
the nugget show because we didn't even get, we just stuck with the nugget the whole way through.
He's banging on every window. Listen, do you hear
Bird?
that? He's just banging
Maybe
his
it's a
head on the window.
devotee. Why don't you relax and invite the bird in?
You know what? Maybe I should. Maybe I got to
There you
flip
go.
this script. I got to flip this script.
Flip the script. It's not attacking you. It wants to be part of the Bhagavatam.
Trying
class.
to get in. It's like a constant. You don't hear that.
You see, Raghunath, who is the soul in that bird? You don't know.
He's trying
Bow
to get
down
in
to that bird.
Maybe he wants. Yeah.
It could be a deva in
Like you
disguise.
have one more birth as a bird, and then you'll be liberated. All you got to do is get the Devotees Association, and he's here
you're-
to get Maturananda,
Yeah.
Isabel, Kevin Shenanigans, Greg DeGasu. This bird just wants their association. He's desperately trying to see Sam and Taylor and Swamiji. He's trying to and Rebecca B. He's eager for the association of all the Zoomers. Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope I see you Sunday at the Bhakti Center. Go to bhakticenter.org if you want to jump on that. Let's pack that place out. Kirtan, singing, dancing, feasting, fasting. No, we're not going to fast. We're going to feast.
What will Raghunath do at this wedding? What will be his pastime?
I'm going to make a scene.
I know. Stop the wedding.
If they